The International School of Portland is celebrating its 35th birthday this year. It's one of only 2 schools in the entire United States that has 3 full language immersion programs under one roof, teaching in Chinese, Japanese, and Spanish. It's also the first school in the Pacific Northwest to offer the renowned International Baccalaureate Primary Years program. They're now enrolling students from preschool to 5th grade for fall of 2026. Sign up for a personal tour at intlschool.org. If you're anything like me, March is the time that you start dreaming about shaking off the rainy weather and getting outside to enjoy our beautiful state. Whether that means sipping Pinot in wine country or disappearing into the forest for a weekend reset, that's where Cascadia Getaways comes in. Locally owned and based here in Oregon, they offer vacation homes from the coast to Mount Hood and beyond, making it easy for you to actually get out and explore this incredible region. Plan your next Oregon escape at CascadiaGetaways.com and use the code CityCast2026 for a special discount. Today on the Midweek News Roundup, we're digging into the mixed signals that we've been seeing about Portland's economy. On one hand, unemployment isn't especially high, but at the same time, new data shows that the Portland metro area has actually lost more jobs over the past few years than almost anywhere else in the country. So what's actually going on? Plus, we're digging into our mailbag to hear your takes on everything from the precarious state of Portland public schools to an inspired pick for the best breakfast sandwich. It's Wednesday, March 11th. I'm John Notarianni in for Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about. Hello and welcome to the Midweek News Roundup. It's a chance for us to catch up on some of the stories that we've been following over the weekend and early in the week. Today, we're taking a look at the local economy, and here with us is Oregonian technology and economy reporter Mike Rogaway. Mike, thanks for coming back on the show. Good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, John.
So I feel like we've been talking about the economy a lot for a long time. For over a year, we've sort of been worrying both locally and nationally about what's going on. And we have gotten some new data points recently. It was just reported that job losses in the Portland metro area are among the worst in the country right now, which I found sort of surprising. What's going on?
Well, so the numbers you're referencing come from a study that the Portland Metro Chamber does every year.
Mm-hmm.
And they compile it and they sort of benchmark us against other cities and things like that. And what they looked at is job growth in the metro area. And in a healthy economy, you're adding jobs. And in the Portland economy, we have not been adding jobs. And really, that goes back to since before the pandemic. We're below where we were in terms of employment in the Tri-County Portland area than where we were in 2019. And that's very different from how most of the country has been. Most of the country went through a big dip and then a pretty strong rebound. That hasn't happened here. And one key to that is that in 2024 and then again in 2025, we had some really historic layoffs. We had lost as many jobs through mass layoffs. These are the jobs that the federal government requires large employers to report these layoffs. Places like Intel and Nike and OHSU and places like that, the pace of layoffs was as high as it was during the Great Recession, or even higher in some cases. So everybody remembers that was a pretty bad time economically. And in terms of layoffs, in terms of job loss, it's been similar. Now, that's not the whole story, but that's a piece of the picture. And so when we're asking what's happened, well, that's it. We had a lot of big layoffs in 2024 and through the first part of 2025.
Okay, so that's a piece of the picture. And I think, companies like Intel that have such a huge presence here, it feels like sometimes when we talk about the economy, we're just sort of talking about what Intel's doing because they have such an outsized presence and they can move the numbers so much. But what is the rest of the picture? I feel like we have had a lot of conversations about faith in Portland as a place to do business and conversations about taxes and stuff like that. Are any of these things moving the issue as well?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, John. That's what's happening is that we're sailing into a lot of headwinds. So at the end of last year, the Portland city economists put out a report, and they said among 3 main local indicators, jobs, population change, and housing, Portland's essentially been in a recession since 2023. And then Mike Wilkerson, who wrote the report for the Portland Metro Chamber, he took the essentially off of it and said it's not just three categories. We're just in a recession here. But those three are really where we could key off of employment, population change, and housing.
So we have an economist saying we're in a recession. Like, does that hold up? Are we in a recession?
Well, if we look at those three, it's not great. Now, we had sort of a boom time during the years between the Great Recession and the pandemic. We had sort of an influx of tech businesses. We had an outflux of people from Seattle and the Bay Area who just thought it was too expensive there. We were building a lot of housing here. And that stopped. That rapid migration into Portland has stopped. And population change and housing are pretty linked on that. We stopped building housing in part because, well, there's many reasons, but it's a chicken and the egg. People aren't coming, so housing isn't getting built. Housing isn't getting built, so people aren't coming.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of it. But another big part of it is institutional investors who finance housing construction look at Portland and they say, well, wait a minute, jobs aren't growing, people aren't moving in. Why would we invest there? We had enormous amount of reputational damage coming out of the pandemic, with the rise in homelessness, homicides, with the riots in 2020. And you'd think institutional investors would look past some sort of anecdotal things, but so far they haven't.
That is wild to me. I mean, because it does seem like, okay, maybe people aren't going to go downtown to the Arlene Schnitzer concert hall as much if they're feeling skittish about the state of downtown, or, maybe restaurants are going to take a hit. But the fact that this perception of the safety of downtown is actually impacting like major real estate investment is crazy.
Yeah, it is strange. And I think, John, people who live here now, we've seen a big change among people who know the city best. Attitudes in polls have shown improved opinions about downtown. People are coming to the Symphony. They're driving a lot of the downtown traffic now. Visitor traffic to downtown is on the upswing. It's just that there are fewer people commuting to work now. But it's going to take some time for that message to get through to people outside the city, especially when we have some genuine things working against us, like the jobs picture and the population change. And it's possible to overstate what's happening here. And if you look at just Portland and just parts of Portland, things look kind of grim. The state economists say they look at the overall state jobs picture, of which Portland is by far the largest part, but only a part. And they say this looks nothing like a recession to them. Right now, unemployment is 5.2% in Oregon, and it's about that in Portland, too. That's the highest it's been in a few years, and it's statewide. It's the third highest among states across the U.S., but historically, it's not very high. Our 10-year average for unemployment in Oregon is 5.9%, and we're 5.2% now. So we're not high. We're probably a little better than normal in terms of unemployment right now.
Yeah.
So ordinarily, when you think of a recession, you think, boy, unemployment's going to be really high. It's not right now. It's not great. And there are a lot of metrics that show that the labor market is weak right now in Oregon and in the Portland area, but it's weak. It's not in a spiral or something.
Yeah, well, okay. Some economists are saying we are already in a recession. Some people at the state level are saying this looks nothing like a recession. Looking towards the next 6 or 12 months, what are you going to be keeping an eye on that's going to give us an indication of oh, we're doing pretty good, or uh-oh, time to really ring the alarm bell?
We have an Oregon state economist, Carl Riccadonna, and he said something maybe early last summer that I thought was pretty interesting. He said, we can see that Oregon's job growth and unemployment is sort of an outlier for the nation. He says one of two things is probably going on there. Either we sort of got, out of whack, and the strong national economy will eventually pull us back, that the things that are benefiting the rest of the United States will eventually spill over and create, more prosperity in Oregon too. Or we're the canary in the coal mine, and everyone else is coming the way we are. And I think right now, it's more like canary in the coal mine. The latest national jobs report was not good, and unemployment is creeping up. People have said for some time that Oregon is in a manufacturing recession. I think people feel that way about the United States as a whole now, that perhaps the sort of things that hit Oregon are starting to spill over into the United States generally. What the effects of the trade war, the effects of tariffs, the slowdown in manufacturing, the slowdown in consumer confidence. those things, Oregon may have been, not so much an outlier, but ahead of the curve on that, and not in a good way. I think for Oregon's perspective, the question would be, if that's the case, do we keep getting worse before everyone else starts to recover, or could we be also a harbinger of the recovery? I think in the last few months, all the government shutdowns have slowed up the rate of data that we're getting about
Hmm.
the state and national economy. And in the last few months, we haven't gotten really timely numbers on the state's labor market. We've had to look at other benchmarks like the hours that people spend at work or new unemployment claims or things like that. I think there is some indication that the deteriorating labor market is not deteriorating as fast as it was now, that perhaps, all the blows we had with the mass layoffs in 2024 and 2025 are not continuing right now, at least.
Hmm.
Here we are approaching the middle of March, and we haven't had nearly as many layoffs in, say, the last 3 or 4 or 5 months as we did in the prior, say, 20. Now, that's not enough time to say that there's a trend, but I think there is some cause for optimism.
Mike, I appreciate every time that you're on the show because you always find a way to give me what feels like pretty bad news with a silver lining that makes me feel kind of good about it. So thank you so
Yeah,
much.
things may not be great, but they may not be getting a lot worse.
Yeah.
That's a glass half full way to look at it. I think we'll just have to see it. There are indications, we talk about two large employers, Nike and Intel. There are indications that each of those companies are getting their feet under them a little bit. And, I'm not saying that there's a lot of growth in the immediate future, but if they're not deteriorating, they're still very large.
Yeah.
And, they could provide a foundation for a recovery.
Yeah. Well, Mike, thank you so much for the update. Always appreciate having you on the show.
Yeah, thanks, John.
All right, let's take a quick break. And then when we come back, time to dig into the mailbag. When the unexpected happens, a serious injury, a catastrophic crash, or even a wrongful death, the impact isn't just personal. It can affect families, neighborhoods, and the safety of our entire community. In those moments, you deserve more than legal help. You deserve advocates committed to making Portland safer for everyone. At Diamore Law Group, you're not just getting a lawyer. You're getting a trial team led by veteran attorney Tom Diamore, who has spent over 30 years holding corporations, negligent drivers, and unsafe institutions accountable. From investigating what went wrong to bringing in experts and taking cases all the way to trial, they do the work it takes to protect their clients and prevent the next tragedy. And you don't pay unless they win. Contact Diamore Law Group at 503-222-6333 or visit Diamore Law to schedule a free consultation. They're here to stand up for individuals and for a safer Portland.
Hi, I'm David Plotz. I'm the CEO of CityCast, a podcast network that includes this show you're listening to, and also 12 other CityCasts in 12 other cities. And each one knows their city as well as your local team knows yours. So isn't it time we connected them? Don't you want to know how they're tackling their bike lane problems and housing challenges and sidewalk dog poop crises? That's why I'm hosting a new podcast called Your City Could Be Better. Because it could be. Every week, I'll chat with a different host in our CityCast network about what their cities are doing right and wrong, the weird things they're trying, and the surprising successes, so that we can all learn how to make our cities a little bit better. Listen to Your City Could Be Better on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, I'm bringing in Julia, senior producer of the show, to help me with the mailbag. Julia, how's it going?
Hello, I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. You got the first one, Julia. What are we talking about?
Okay, so I got one here from listeners David and Cher P, and they're talking about this program that City Hall has recently implemented for folks to be incentivized to rent out extra rooms in their house that aren't being used. So this is their message. You guys sound like you have a blast on these podcasts, which we do. However, the idea of paying an upfront bonus of $1,000 to rent out a room to a complete stranger is insane. You have it right, though. I see fraud written all over this plan. I've already thought I could get the $1,000 for renting out a room to the grandson, different last name, who is already living with us. No way to prove he's family. I would love to sit in on these meetings when they come up with these plans. 2 laughing emojis. Trust me, old people are not that gullible. At least I hope they are smarter than this plan, which they're commenting on the many ways in our last Friday roundup that we came up with that we could basically grift this program, which is hilarious because obviously that's not the point, but they're in agreement.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that comes to everybody's mind when this program was proposed is like the ways that you can dupe the system, which I don't know what that says about us as a culture that we're like, I know just how to cheat through this one.
I have a guy I can call.
Yeah. Well, I've got one from listener Kyle who reached out and wanted to talk about the story we covered on the Roundup recently that Andrew Schwartz reported for Willamette Week about the closure of a Northeast neighborhood care clinic a few years after it had been bought by a subsidy of the giant United Health Group. This is what Kyle has to say. Shout out to United Healthcare Group for achieving $447 billion in revenue and $13.1 billion in net income in 2025. I'm sure the closure of the Northeast Family Medical Group was paramount in squeezing that extra income. Imagine what the shareholders would have thought if you didn't run a neighborhood clinic into the ground. Don't let up into 2026. There's surely another dozen neighborhood clinics that could use their expertise. Kyle goes on to say, the real shout out is to Mr. Schwartz and the crew at Willamette Week for reporting on the closure of neighborhood clinics in Portland. The loss of consistent primary care will have a negative long-term effect on the health of Portlanders. And in the classic American way, it's all in the name of profit, not healthcare. It's a conversation that we all need to beat the drum around until, well, I don't know what the solution is, but I envision less for-profit healthcare providers. Yeah,
Gosh.
Really infuriating story, and like clearly somebody who felt it personally, you know, who like these clinics are a part of people's neighborhoods. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a similar experience, not tied to United Healthcare, but just going through the pains of a doctor's office nearby closing. And now I have to drive all the way out to the suburbs to go to a basic appointment. And it just feels so inaccessible on so many levels because not only that, they're also cramming a bunch more patients into one office. So the availability isn't there. And it has this insanely negative effect on your health. They just don't care, John, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So frustrating.
Yeah, they are optimizing for profitability.
Yeah. It's so frustrating. This next one is from listener Eliz R. And they said, thank you so much for inviting Julia Silverman on to talk about the budget situation in PPS. That's our friend of the show and Oregonian education reporter, Julia Silverman. I listened to it this morning on the way to school with my 2 elementary-age kids who attend school in PPS. All the recent news about budget cuts has been incredibly devastating for families to face. Next year, our school is losing beloved teachers, class sizes are being increased, we're losing access to art, a particularly upsetting blow after learning that the Portland Arts Tax has several $1 million of unspent funds. Our school library will only be open 2 days a week. It's awful. It seems that every year my kids have been in school, the cuts just get deeper. These are very real issues facing families in Portland. Then they go on, I wish that Oregon was a state that was actively striving towards having the best education system in the country, rather than continually underfunding it and being surprised when students have poor outcomes and people with means simply leave. We love our teachers and we love our school, and my hope is that listeners know how difficult this is for families and teachers to face. Then they added this note. As my 4th grader was listening to this episode, she very thoughtfully reminded me that they are doing a social studies unit on budgeting right now and suggested that PPS might let her and her classmates take a crack at fixing it. Our kids know this isn't right. When will the adults catch up?
That is
note.
The best idea I have heard in a very long time. Heck, because you know the kids are just going to be like, well, why don't we just pay for the schools? Why?
I know.
We should just pay. The adults should pay for the teachers to teach the kids. That
yeah. Where's the money? That and it'll be like, and ice cream 2 days a week.
Yeah. And pizza at lunch.
And some more stickers, which awesome.
Oh, that's delightful. Well,
Yeah.
Julia, I've got one final comment from listener NC. I believe this was a reference to your pick of the Poa Cafe breakfast burrito in our March guide, but also sort of feels as commentary on the ongoing conversation that we seem to always be having on this show about the best breakfast sandwiches in Portland.
Yeah.
I feel like that is always like a topic that is just in the wings, and NC had a pick. Not known for breakfast, Tanaka's version is totally sublime. Luscious milk bread, perfectly toasted and buttered with just the right amount of mayo. Must get with sausage and bacon, rich in all the right ways. I am passionate about this sandwich.
I love that.
That goes on to say, don't let them try to upsell you on the pulled pork. It's not as good, but you must try if you're in the area. I can absolutely co-sign this breakfast sandwich. It is,
Really?
it is super good. And like, I feel like there's this sort of sweet spot of a breakfast sandwich. Like you want it to be substantial, but sometimes you get one and it's just like too greasy, too gloopy. Like if you're just looking for sustenance and not a hangover cure, yeah, like I think Tanaka is the perfect sandwich for that. Yes.
That's such a good tip. And I also love an honest tip where they're able to say, just don't even bother with a pulled pork, which is like not a total diss. It's just like, you already got 2 different types of meat on that sandwich. Maybe it's enough.
We're good.
Yes. Yeah. That sounds incredible. I cannot wait to try it.
Yeah. Well, thank you everybody to writing in and sharing your thoughts, reflecting on the shows that we put out over the past week or so. If you have a favorite breakfast sandwich or want to sort of chime in on anything that you hear on the show, we do always love to hear from you. Our email is portland@citycast.fm. So shoot us a message and we would love to get you in on the show.
Yay.
All right. Well, Julia, thanks for popping in, breaking down the mailbag with us. Thank you to Mike Rogaway for appearing on the show. And I hope that all of you have a great rest of the week.
Thank you.
That's all for us today here on CityCast Portland. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this show, why not tell a friend or leave us a rating or a review? We'd really appreciate it. And don't forget, you can support this show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast neighbor. Just visit membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow with more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's.